quite extensively with children with autism as well as many different mental health conditions. Can you please elucidate, tell us a little bit about your approach and probably what is the better approach for the treatment of autism? First of all, autism is actually treatable. Can you expound upon that, please?
Yes, I can. Kind of a loaded title. Autism is treatable, and as you know, the prevalence of autism is actually rising. We've done a lot of different things to the environment, and there are a lot of environmental cues as well as some genetic predispositions that has led to this particular prevalence. However, as you know, it is a treatable condition. There are many different ways to look at autism. Treatment is not one single entity that is used. It's very plethoric. Gut, the brain, the diet, nutraceuticals, if you would allow that term. If you give your body the building blocks that it needs to do what it needs to do, it will do it, but they must be there in the right proportions and in the right amounts. And it will tend to do those things. What a lot of children with autism do not have the capacity to metabolize as they really need to. And so there is some deficit, a large deficit, that is noted when the brain chemistry is not in balance. And that is part of the problem. Of course, the gut also has a lot to do with that as well. But things that we take in are supposed to deliver to our entire system, systemically, everything that we need to physically function well as mentally function well.
What kind of imbalances are you seeing in patients who treat children who are autistic and so forth?
One of the common things that you see in autism is a lack of zinc. Usually there's a large zinc deficiency. Very often there is copper toxicity or just toxicity, period, in terms of minerals and metals. There's also a tendency for there to be what they call histodelia, which is high histamine. It can also have an effect on mood and disposition and demeanor as well. The gut, of course, is another issue, and you need to treat that as well. They have what you call, and many people have heard this term, leaky gut, so to speak, to the extent that many of the minerals and vitamins that you take in simply leak out and are not able to be utilized because they're simply not there. Now, ordinarily, we're supposed to regain our strength, regain our ability to, regain our charge by eating, by intaking things which are nutrients, things that, give our body its nutrient basis such that we can make the chemicals that we need to make in order to function physically as well as mentally, and they're really both related. However, in the case of autism, if you have a quote-unquote leaky gut, you might not be able to do those things as well.
So part of the foundational crux of what you do is that you test for these imbalances.
Yes, we do.
And then you use appropriate levels of nutrient concentrations, nutrients, to actually help fix the problem that was in part present because of a lack of those nutrients.
Or you could call it restoring the balance.
Restoring the balance.
And that's really just part of the explanation of what's happening there. If you look back early on in development, the brain actually is very plastic. At least that's a term that's being used or thrown around these days. Early intervention seems to be key here. There's something happens with the development of the brain that is missing in children with autism. There's a certain pruning or a certain formulating of the brain that does not take place in the manner that it should. However, if you get a child and it's an early intervention scenario, you can actually help the brain to develop in a manner that is more appropriate.
So early intervention is really key here.
I would tend to think so, absolutely.